All right, excellent afternoon to all those watching me across the states in Nigeria. I think I must start by saying that the financial stability is the bedrock upon which a developing economy can thrive, fostering investors' confidence and economic growth. And I feel that it's important for us to ensure that a solid foundation for sustainable development, enabling businesses to expand, in this world that we are in, especially when it comes to individuals to save and, of course, the nation to weather economic storms with resilience. Again, I say welcome to another interesting episode of Real Talk with Kike. I remain the founder and the host of Real Talk with Kike. And of course, I think it's important for us to hear what On This Day in History segment asked for us today. Stay with me and let's say this together. I will be right back.
On this day in history, November 7th, 1965, Reuben Adeleye Abati was born. Abati is a Nigerian journalist, politician, television anchor and newspaper columnist. He was the People's Democratic Party, PDP's deputy governorship candidate in Ogun State for the 2019 gubernatorial election. Abati was special advisor on media and publicity to President Goodluck Jonathan of Nigeria between year 2011 and 2015. He was previously a newspaper columnist and the chairman of the editorial board of the Nigerian newspaper, The Guardian, from 2001 to 2011.
All right, many thanks for staying with me. I'm actually blushing because I'm asking myself this on this day in this history segment about if I want to remain official about Dr. Reuben Abati isn't complete because every Monday his articles shines a light on the world as an accomplished professional, his brand, on the walls of journalism, on the walls of literature and public service with an unmatched zeal for excellence, and of course it's academic, when I was actually, going through some of his profile, before putting out my caption this morning, I felt that if I should spend time on his qualification, on his profile in terms of his academic achievement, I wouldn't finish because his achievements are equally, impressive, with qualifications in dramaturgy, in law, in journalism, management, and leadership, his recognition as an I can keep going on and now I'm blushing because quite a number of people are behind the cameras smiling with me. And I just want to say that, he's a Nigerian academic of letters and, of course, an associate fellow of the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs as well as NIIA and a member of the advisory board of Bridge House, Bridge House College, Nigeria. I have to infuse that in because, I have some level of affiliation to that, and I must say that what he stands for, what Reuben Abati stands for, reflects his intellectual prowess and his influence all over the world. And he has graced the world of journalism with his profound insights and versatile skills, leaving an deletable or permanent mark in both print and broadcast journalism, and his contributions, extend beyond the newsroom to the realm of social media and management. Yes, because every day, year in, year out, is always point to the intellectual society regarding what affects you and I, lending his voice, and he has passion for that. I see that every day, on one of the channels in Nigeria, which is doing well. That is a Rise station. I feel that that was omitted on this day in this history when it comes to one of his achievements. And as his role as a public intellectual is both influential and inspiring one. I think if I keep going on, I know people will know the reason why, but guys, I remain loyal to this man. I remain loyal to his kingdom, and it remains my pinnacle as long as I breathe. I think enough of that. Let's go on to get a message from those who put me on this platform. Stay with me. I'll be right back. All right, welcome to the show. I will dive straight to the remarkable turnaround of the Nigerian Naira and, of course, its implication for the economy. And in recent developments, the Naira strengthened significantly, trading at 950 Naira per dollar in the parallel market. And this marks an incredible rebound from previous levels. And the Central Bank of Nigeria's proactive measures, including the clearance of FX backlogs and more frequent open markets operation, that is OMO. OMO auctions, are contributing to this recovery. And on the live show today, my discussion will revolve around several key points: Naira resurgence, central bank's role, analyzing the predictions, and the frequent open market operation, that is the OMO, and of course the auctions and related to currency stability. And I have an expert guest on the show today. You will be providing insight to all of the topic and the different points that I've raised earlier, shedding light on the economic forces that is at play, and of course the potential impact on businesses today, and of course individuals, staying with us, with all that is going on right now. I believe that my guest today is the one that will be able to throw light on the conversation at hand, especially when it comes to the Naira performance and what it means for Nigerians' economic future. Before I delve further, I think it's important for me to play his profile. And when I return, the conversation will continue. Stay with me. I'll be right back. All right, many thanks for staying with me. Let me use this opportunity to quickly usher in my guest, Dr. Muda Yusuf. It's a pleasure to have you again on Real Talk with Kike today. Many thanks for accepting my invites despite the close notice. It's an honor to have you on the platform again today. How are you doing today, sir? Let's start from there.
Well, I'm fine, and thanks for inviting me.
Oh, fantastic. Many thanks again for always honoring my invite. Let's go straight to the topic at hand, because I feel the Naira experienced a significant rebound against the US dollar, strengthening to 950 Naira per dollar in the parallel markets, like I said earlier in my opening. And this marks an impressive gain compared to the 1,125 Naira to a dollar that it traded for previously. So can you explain the factors behind this Naira rebound, against the US dollar, and how significant is this development for the Nigerian economy?
It's a very significant development. It's an indication that confidence is gradually being restored, both in the economy and in our foreign exchange markets. Because what has happened over the last couple of months was a practical, collapse of confidence, which had led to a lot of anxiety, a lot of panic, and something that we could liken to a run on the currency. That is what had happened up until a few days ago. So the good thing is that we are beginning to see a restoration of confidence, following what the president said and following what the finance minister and the CBN governor said, especially at the Nigeria Economic Summit event, where the president assured that very soon we'll see an improvement in liquidity in the foreign exchange market, and that will help to douse the current anxiety and tension in the market. And as it turned out, we are beginning to see evidence of that. Just as you said in your intro, a significant part of the backlog is being cleared, which was one of the major steps that needs to be taken to restore confidence. And when you restore confidence, you'll be able to ensure an improvement in liquidity, you'll be able to attract more investors, you'll be able to attract more inflows. So it's a very good signal, and it also, projects a very good trajectory for the currency. And I'm hoping that the current momentum of stabilizing the system will be sustained, because it's only through the sustenance of this intervention and this clearing of backlog that you'll be able to fully restore the confidence of investors, both in the foreign exchange market and in the Nigerian economy itself.
All right, many thanks for that insight. But the official investors and the exporters, that is the I&E windows, also reflected strength by trading at 776 naira per US dollar. I stand to be corrected. How would you commend, Central Bank of Nigeria's policy and its measures, it has taken to address FX liquidity constraints, with all that is happening right now? What's your take on all of this?
Well, my take is that the central bank has properly identified what the priorities should be as far as the foreign exchange market is concerned. Basically, what we are dealing with is essentially, or to a large extent, a supply side issue. In other words, the challenges of supplying foreign exchange into the economy. And all this came about because of the rapid or the very sharp depletion in our foreign exchange reserves, especially under the previous administration. The situation was not very clear to many citizens. Our expectation was that the reserves were much higher than what it turned out to be. But the audit report that was released came up with a whole lot of revelations, which demonstrated or which revealed the fact that the situation is really very, very bad. So against that background, there's a lot of stampede by investors following a detailed analysis of those audit reports. And the CBN had set out to say that it was going to take steps to restore the confidence. And one of the major steps it has taken was to clear the backlog. This is a very important first step for which we must commend the Central Bank of Nigeria. The CBN has mobilized on foreign exchange. Some of them maybe forward sales from NNPC. Some of them, they talked about securitization of dividends from LNG and all of that. But whatever it is, there is the urgency to stabilize the market and restore the confidence. So, and that is what is manifesting now. Because unless we clear the backlog, there's no way we can bring confidence back. There's no way we can bring normalcy back to our international trade process. Because as I speak to you, before this intervention, the international trade process had almost been practically crippled because there was no liquidity, because maturing letters of credit were not settled. Therefore, many of our correspondent banks were not following our letters of credit. And that meant that international trade was gradually coming to a halt, which is very, very dangerous for the economy. So the CBN has prioritized, the clearing of this backlog, starting with the backlog of outstanding and maturing obligations. To some extent, some steps have been taken around the airline and some of those other things, then Form A, outstanding obligations, and so on. So the CBN has done well by prioritizing those things. And gradually, I'm sure other outstandings will be dealt with. And we expect to see on the back of that, perception of the economy will continue to improve. We expect to see a lot more inflows, at least with time, if we're able to sustain this trajectory, more inflows from foreign direct investments, more inflows from foreign portfolio investments, and more inflows from even remittances. Because we need to take this along with other reforms that are taking place in the foreign exchange market, which the CBN is determined to also sustain. I'm talking about the convergence of rates, even though the rates appear to be diverging a bit. But ultimately, I'm sure we'll get to that point. So on the whole, I think we are on course with what the CBN is doing. We are seeing more action than rhetorics from the CBN, which is also very good. That is what we like to see. But we just hope that this trajectory will be sustained.
For that elaborate submission, if you're saying that, we are okay with what CBN is doing, because the CBN, the Central Bank of Nigeria, initiated the clearing of its outstanding FX backlogs, leading to this rebound. You were the former DG of Chamber of Commerce. How do you think this will impact, foreign businesses that involves, imports and exports?
Well, it will impact from the point of view of the confidence restoration. Because as an international investor, and as anybody, any of the stakeholders in the international ecosystem, whether in the financial system or in the trading ecosystem in international trade, once there is a disruption in the flow of capital or flow of remittances, the whole chain of business, international business, collapses. That was the point we were almost getting to, when the whole international trade process and the whole international flow of capital was almost being truncated completely because of the illiquidity in the foreign exchange market, which was compounded by, of course, the speculative activities in the foreign exchange market. So with this, we expect to see more trade, international trade flows. We expect to see a resumption of international trade flows. And because there is no country that is an island, every country has one or two things to do with other countries. Even the most advanced economies also trade. They import, they export, running sometimes even into trillions of dollars. So it is normal for international trade to take place, for any economy to be able to sustain its activities and the general well-being of its people and even investment. So this development is going to, further boost international trade because there is much more confidence now. It will boost, remittances. It will boost foreign direct investment and, of course, foreign portfolio investments. So it's a gradual thing. And that is why I was saying that we have to take this development alongside other reforms that have been put in place by the Central Bank of Nigeria. I'm talking about unification of the exchange rates and some other, complementary policies that have been introduced. All of these are supposed to enhance the flow of foreign exchange in the economy. So if we're able to ensure that liquidity, which will allow for inflows and outflows into the economy of foreign exchange, then we'll be getting somewhere. And And I'm sure that even with what is happening, we are likely to continue to improve. But of course, we also need to look at the medium term and see how we are going to sustain the supply. Because what has happened now is like, taking some of our resources upfront. I'm talking about forward sales of crude. I'm talking about securitization of dividends of LNG and so on. These are forward, these are, taking the incomes upfront. So we need to also work, at least project to the future and ensure that the future cash flow is also not encumbered significantly. And I'm sure we'll be able to do that. The moment we restore confidence, the moment we're able to ensure that we improve our oil output, which is very, very significant, and the government is doing a whole lot around that to tackle the problem of insecurity in the Niger Delta so that our oil output can also improve. So all these other avenues, again, also related to that is our non-oil exports and other remittances. So all these policies together will make it possible for us to be able to stabilize the market, not only in the short run, but also in the medium to long term, because that is very important. So that down the road, we don't have a problem of cash flow because we have taken some of these facilities upfront. But with the restoration of confidence, I'm sure we'll be able to make up for whatever future cash flow shortfalls exist as a result of the amount that has been mobilized upfront by the Central Bank of Nigeria. So I believe we are on course to recovery. And I think we also need to work also on the demand side, because the equation of foreign exchange is a demand and supply equation. Just as we are trying to boost supply, we should also see what we can do to reduce demand. And one way to do that is to ensure that we fast track all our endeavors and steps around what we call import substitution, so that you can substitute some of the imports that is currently putting a lot of pressure on the foreign exchange. And one of the biggest things that we quickly need to substitute is petroleum products. So that is why we need to accelerate the process and support Dangote and other local refineries as quickly as possible and as much as possible, so that they can come on stream, so that the reliance on foreign importation of foreign petroleum products will also be reduced. So that is on the demand side. We also need to work on the demand side to ensure that we reduce import dependence as much as possible.
All right, many thanks,
So
Mr.
those are the things that we need to do to ensure sustainability of what has been achieved for now.
All right, many thanks, Dr. Mudashiru. Putting that aside, because you've said a lot in your submission with my last question to you, but I quite agree with you that no country is an island. I would like to touch on the projection of JP Morgan, because the CBN's efforts, have resulted in an 18.42% increase in the Naira's value within a single day. And the analyst predictions from JP Morgan that projected that the Naira will trade at 50 Naira per dollar at the investors' rate, and exporters, in terms of forex window before the end of 2023. So I must ask you, with all that you've shared thus far, how do you think this will aid our foreign direct investments? That's my first question to you, sir. My second question to you before we go on a break is the fact that the CBN has increased the frequency of open market operation, that is the OMO, the OMO auctions, which is expected to make Naira assets more attractive and attract foreign portfolio investments. What's your opinion regarding the demerit of this OMO, and do you think that it may increase interest rates in the long run?
Well, starting with the open market operations, two main objectives. The first is to manage liquidity, because if the Naira liquidity is excessive or is very high, it has a way of also creating challenges for the foreign exchange market. So it has the objective of, moderating liquidity, which is good, because at this time, just as I said, apart from dealing with supply, we also need to deal with demand. And part of the efforts to deal with demand is to put in place these monetary policy instruments that will help to, reduce naira liquidity, which is one of the objectives of the open market operation. The other objective is for at least to be able to attract investors, portfolio investors, because if the rates are attractive, we are likely to see an inflow of portfolio investors who will buy into the open market operation instruments. So from that two perspectives, it has the prospect of improving the situation, because we also need to manage liquidity. And the good thing about what the new CBN governor has said is that he has assured the nation that he was going to ensure that he operates within the limits of the law, that he will, raise the bar as far as compliance is concerned. So that I don't see a situation where the CBN will be going overboard, especially around issue of monetization of government expenditure. In other words, the ways and means or the rate at which the government, the CBN, is providing funding to government. He said he's going to keep that within the limits of what the law says, which is a very good thing. So if you take that alongside the steps that have been taken around Omo, that will help to manage liquidity, and that will help to also reduce the demand pressure on the naira. So that is where the central bank is coming from. So it's a welcome development. As to how this will affect foreign direct investment, of course it will, because foreign investment and even domestic investments are all functions of confidence. If the confidence improves, that first, there is better liquidity. Second, that they can bring in their money and also take out their money or their dividend anytime they wish they could do so. That will be fine. But the exchange rates we are looking at realistically, if we're able to sustain this current momentum, at least we'll be looking at between 800 to 850, steadily, sustainably in the economy. I think that is what we should be looking at in the medium term. So 800, 850, for now, if we're able to make sure that that is the case, and if we're able to narrow the gap between the official rate and the parallel market rates, giving a premium of maximum of 10%, that is still tolerable, because there will always be a differential. What we need to worry about is the magnitude of the differential between the parallel market rate and the official window. So on the whole, I believe we are on course, looking at what is happening and looking at the steps that the central bank is taking presently.
Thanks again for that submission right there. We'll go on a quick break to get the word from my sponsors. When I return, the conversation will continue. Stay with me. I'll be right back. Glad to know you're still right there with me. In case you just joined the show, today's conversation is about the naira rebonding against dollar value, and of course, this is a result of the clearing of FX, FX backlog worth over $10 billion, coupled with the allowance of open market operation by the Central Bank of Nigeria. And of course, these policies and measures have been applauded as the reason for the naira gaining competitive advantage. And I have been discussing with an expert economist and a former Director General of Chambers of Commerce in person of Dr. Muda Yusuf, and is always gracing our show. And I want to say many thanks for always creating time to lend your voice on issues that affect us all. And to all those who are listening to us right now, don't forget that you can be part of the conversation by calling the studio number 080-988-77400 showing on your screen right now. And of course, we're streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube, both on Real Talk with Kike and on social media and on Facebook platform. Sir, again, I say many thanks, for sharing part of your lunchtime with us today. But I would like to go straight to an issue that I feel that we need to touch on, because to strengthen our economy and for long-term financial stability of our country, I will need your thoughts or your suggestion to Mr. Wale Edun, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy of Nigeria, regarding Mr. Olayemi Kadaso, regarding the CBN governor. What's your advice for them? Are you there? Can you hear me, sir? All right, I understand that we lost our guest. My technical team will try to connect to me. Why doing that? I understand that we have a caller on the line. Are you there? All right. Okay, let's go on a quick break and reestablish connection with my guest. When I come back, the conversation will continue. Stay with me. I'll be right back. All right, are you there with me, sir? Dr. Muda Yusuf, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now, sir?
I can hear you.
Fantastic. Like I said, the question I asked you last before the interruption of the network is that I would like your advice regarding how to strengthen our economy for a long-term financial stability of our country. Because for a man like you, I believe that you might have one or two suggestions from Mr. Wale Edun, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy of Nigeria, and of course, Mr. Olayemi Kadaso, the CBN governor. What's your advice for them with all your expertise in this field?
Well, I believe that, first of all, let me say that they are on course generally, because some of the critical reforms that we expect to take place in order to stabilize the economy, some of those reforms are already being implemented. Even though the outcomes have been painful, but those reforms are reforms that are inevitable. But we are hoping that the government will act quickly, at least to mitigate the pains of those reforms. But those reforms are reforms that we need to put in place in order to put the economy back from the brink. The second point is that haven't, at least to some extent, sorted out or dealt with the challenges of the macroeconomic fundamentals. I think we should now begin to look at some productivity issues. How do we boost production? Because it's one thing to deal with macroeconomic issues. It's another thing to create an investment climate for investors to be able to take it up from there. Because whatever the investors are doing form like a superstructure, having laid a solid macroeconomic foundation, because you can't build something on nothing. So for the investor to take advantage of what is happening, we need to create the environment to ensure much better productivity. We need to look at issues, particularly from the structural side. How do we deal with structural issues? I'm talking about infrastructure, power, and all of that. Those are very key. How do we deal with issues of energy costs so that the cost of operation and the cost of production will be much less? How do we come up with a framework to support investment in infrastructure? How do we mobilize private capital to support government funding in infrastructure, because obviously government funding alone cannot deal with infrastructure. Neither can private investment deal with it alone. So there has to be complementary mobilization of resources to ensure that we deal with the problem of infrastructure. Then we also need to deal with the problem of ensuring efficiency in the bureaucracy. Because no matter how well intentioned we are as a government, no matter how good the policies are, if the bureaucracy is not on the same page with the political leadership, or is not on the same page with those who are driving these reforms, we may not achieve the desired outcomes. So the civil service are very critical to implementation of government policies. They can make or mar these policies. So it is important that there's also an extension of this reform to the civil service, so that the civil service will be well positioned to be able to support these reforms. Then we also need to move quickly to address the social concerns, because, for the man on the streets, the only language the man on the street understands is the language of welfare. To what extent has these policies impacted on his or her welfare? To what extent has it brought down the cost of food? To what extent has it brought down the cost of transportation? To what extent has it brought down the cost of, health or education? Those things are key. So we need to also adopt policies. Some of them may be macro policies. Some of them may be sector-specific policies to mitigate the pains of these reforms on the citizens. So that I can see a reduction in the cost of food, we can see a reduction in the cost of transportation. And we can situate that within the context of some of the palliative initiatives that the government is putting in place. Then, of course, the CBN has promised transparency, has promised compliance, that we have to live up to those promises. Those things also have a way of eliciting confidence. Then the government is doing a lot around our oil and gas sector. We need to bring sanity to that space, because we find ourselves in this rather unfortunate situation because of the almost total collapse of our oil and gas sector, which has brought us to a situation where we are spending over $1 billion monthly to import petroleum products, which has brought us to a point where we are not able to even meet our OPEC quota and take advantage of the current high oil prices. So getting it right with the oil and gas sector is very critical, to tackling the current economic challenges, and critical to sustaining these reforms, because we need those things that will help to strengthen the economic fundamentals. Mm-hmm. So by way of an advice, I think basically those are some of the things that I think the present administration should do. And of course, also strengthen coordination between the fiscal and monetary policy, measures. And I'm also happy that only recently the president organized a retreat for the ministers. So there's now a very strong performance management framework. There are KPIs for the ministers, which will be tracked, and all of that.
All right. Many thanks for that elaborate submission on your advice to the people in this administration. Are you there? Can you hear me, sir?
I can hear you.
Fantastic. This will be my last question to you before we move to the last segment of the show. And the question I would like to ask you right now is that of the managing director of Airtel Africa, of Mr. Olusegun Ogunsanya, who ruled out the likelihood of another massive devaluation of the Nigerian currency, indicating that confidence in the measures taken by the CBN is something that should be looked into. Can you elaborate on the reasons behind this viewpoint and its implications for the currency stability? My second question to you, sir, is that I'm more concerned with the actions of the saboteurs, because when CBN pumps in forex into the market like that, we know the the resultant effect of negative practices of the Bureau de Change, who are major actors in the forest market, because we cannot overlook that. How do you think CBN should cater for the excesses of this kind of saboteurs?
Well, as for the saboteurs and speculators and things like that, I think we need to strengthen the surveillance framework in the financial system. We have already some framework for surveillance. There is a financial intelligence unit, but the banks need to strengthen their KYC, and monitor transactions properly within the banking system. And there has to be consequences for infractions. Yes, we want to liberalize the economy, we want a market-friendly economy, but that should not give an excuse for people to begin to perpetrate illegalities, for people to be creating distortions in the foreign exchange market, for people to be making demands for foreign exchange that are not backed by any concrete activity in the economy. So the banking system needs to do a lot, particularly the deposit money banks. They need to do a lot to support the central bank in ensuring that we minimize the impact of these illicit activities within the financial system. We can also not rule out the possibility of even illicit funds, money laundering activities. These things could also create a lot of distortions. Because whether I like it or not, we have quite a lot of funds in the system that we cannot trace to any concrete economic activities.
Unfortunately, I have to interrupt your line of thought. This is where we end the first segment of the show. I know that you have a lot that you want to still share regarding the last question I asked you, but quickly we have to move to the last the last segment of the show that is called Trending Stories. These are stories that bind us as Nigerians, and the first trending story that caught my attention is that of the airpeace milestone in terms of the new route alert. And I have to quickly put this out there. I'm surprised and at the same time not surprised, because I'm not surprised because airpeace has always been a record breaker and a groundbreaker in the Nigerian aviation industry, and I'm surprised that this is a milestone in the international terrain, and there's more to come for airpeace as far as Nigerian flagship carrier has achieved this milestone by securing the necessary permits to commence operations into the United Kingdom, coinciding with its remarkable decade of service. This accomplishment carries substantial economic implication, fostering stronger trade ties, tourism, business collaboration between the UK and Nigeria. And the aviation sector of Nigeria is also, poised for significant growth and expansion as airpeace international presence, advances, drawing attention and investment to the nation's aviation industry. And travelers, both Nigerian and British, are set to gain from this increased travel options and, of course, potentially more competitive airfares, enhancing, convenience and connectivity as well. And airpeace entry, into the UK market highlights visionary leadership, specifically, applauding the CEO of airpeace, that is Barrister Allen Oyema, whose strategic vision and determination have propelled the airline, to this significant achievement. This achievement, reinforces the airline's reputation and, of course, significance in the global aviation arena, and, of course, underscores its dedication to serving the need of travelers and the economic growth of Nigeria. I just want to urge Nigerians, both the government and the people, to support our indigenous business owners in this industry. And of course, this is part of ownership culture. If you ask me, as a trainer, I must always bring one course or the other, to balance my views. Yeah, this is ownership culture. There should be more policies to support them, to give them competitive advantage. For example, Air Peace is still fighting for prime spots and slots at the Heathrow, where the aviation authority in the UK wants Air Peace to fly from Gatwick or Manchester and other local city airports. So in Nigeria, we did not subject Air Peace to fly from Benin or Kanu. They have our prime airports, including MMA and Nnamdi Azikiwe in Abuja. So why can't we be given prime airports like Heathrow in the UK? I just want to use this platform, this opportunity, this medium to urge the government to consider our own in terms of competitive advantage. This win is not just for Air Peace alone, but for Nigeria and Africa as a whole. And I want to say again, many, congratulations to Air Peace Nigeria. Quickly, let me come to you, Mr. Muda Yusuf. What's your take on this trending?
No, it's a very good development. I think I join you in congratulating.
I think we lost connection with him again. But quickly, let me touch on the second trending story. And the second trending story for me is that of the Mrs. Josephine Akiyemi at 60. Yes, Mrs. Josephine Akiyemi at 60. On this special day, I celebrate a woman of virtue for her 60th birthday, a true jubilee of a life well lived. A number 60 signify wisdom and experience. And this lovely auntie of mine, she's an embodiment of qualities, with the fullest of life right now. And she is not just a generous woman, but a woman of honor. When I see a lot of people who carry Bible and the likes and all of that, I say to myself, who knows them behind camera? But this woman here is a doer of God's words, and she is a consultant trainer. Let me put a professional touch to it, and of course a verified strategist that has helped numerous individuals and impacted many businesses. She's a compassionate and an amiable woman. My prayer for her today is that, God should continue to be with her. I love the fact that she has been a guiding light to a lot of people, especially during my most vulnerable time of my life, and yes, to a remarkable journey and the impact that she has had on all of us. And I wish her a happy 60th birthday, to a truly inspirational soul. Many happy returns, ma. And I can't wait to marry. Like my husband would say, there's implications to all of this. There's jollophing and pepper souping that we have to do afterward. Congratulations again, and I say happy 60th birthday to you. With that, I think I've come to the end of another interesting episode of Real Talk with Kike. Like my technical director, I've started running commentary in my ears. I don't know what he's saying because the wires are removed from my ears. I hope you can understand that. So I just want to say many thanks again to my resourceful guest, Dr. Muda Yusuf, for creating time to lend your voice on issues that would move Nigeria forward, and of course on issues that affect us all as Nigerians. Many thanks for honoring my invite. I do not take it for granted, because for those who know that it's not an easy thing to facilitate guests to actually come on the show, especially when it comes to talking about what is trending and what is affecting us presently. And I want to say many thanks again, Mr. Muda Yusuf, for honoring my invite. And on that note, this is where I draw the curtains of the show. My name remains Kike Atanda-Owo. Abasi.